PBM stands for Photobiomodulation. Photo being light, bio being biology, and light, well, light coming from some kind of source. In this case, PBM is used to help stimulate healing in the body, whether it's an LED, whether it's a laser, whether it's the sun, but that light comes through the skin layers, and actually the cells are able to absorb that light, converting it to energy, and then there's a host of different processes that are stimulated because of that light. So you can speed up healing, you can do different things that is very beneficial for the cells themselves, for healing, for reduction of inflammation, and a host of other things. Kerber USA is a company that we have set up to promote healing for the US and around the world. We would like to see this technology help a lot of people. We use LED technology where we can provide high amounts of light into the body, and that stimulates healing. I'd like to introduce you to the SunPowerLED Palm Ultimate. This device here has the most power of the series of devices. This light can produce a huge amount of light that can enter into the body and help speed up that healing. In this device, we have two different wavelengths. It's 660 nanometer, and as you can see, it's very bright, but it's very effective. You will cause a systemic effect with this wavelength of light. The other wavelength is 810. It's not very visible, but it penetrates very deep, and that can help as well reach the target that you're trying to reach. The main part about this light is that we have the power behind it and the large surface area that can reach very deep into the body. We believe that our product is the most powerful LED cluster under the sun. We have specification of this device of 150 milliwatts per square centimeter, and that is over this entire area of 40 square centimeters. It also provides a wall of light that comes through the skin and is able to reach depths that have never been able to be done before with other light products on the market. There's an interesting biblical passage in Malachi 4:2 that talks about the healing that comes from the rays of the sun. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide healing with these rays. PBM has also been shown in various studies to be able to help promote healing in wounds such as diabetic ulcers, venous ulcers, and other areas where cuts or burns or other types of wounds are on the skin level. If you have any questions about PBM and how our light device, the SunPowerLED Palm series, can help you, please reach out to us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Well, now I get a chance to invite our special guest, Scot Faulkner. He has been, as I mentioned earlier, he has been heavily involved in advancing PBM and has traveled around the world to further demonstrate how PBM can be helpful. He's worked closely with the US government and has helped to advance PBM in the field. So I'd now like to bring on Scot. All right, there we go. All right, so how you doing, Scot?
Very fine. Yourself?
Very good, thanks. So, question: how did you get started with PBM?
Well, it actually came in from different directions. First, in the summer of 2015, I was asked by the Optical Society of America to facilitate their entrepreneurial incubator for PBM. At that time, I had not even heard what PBM was or what the acronym stood for, but there were 75 people from about 15 countries that they wanted me to facilitate in terms of how PBM diverse group of inventors, of entrepreneurs, of government officials, of scientists, practitioners could turn into a movement. And so over 3 days, with a lot of post-it notes, we came up with some ideas. And that kind of is where things sat for a couple of years until in January of 2017, my wife fell and tore her left rotator cuff. And she only had 60% range of motion, getting monthly cortisone shots, deep pain. And one of the attendees from that Optical Society of America gave me a PBM device and said, have her try it out. So for about 4 weeks, she was putting it on her left shoulder, 3 different places, about 4 minutes each place. And after the fourth week, 100% range of motion and no more cortisone shots. So that made me a believer immediately. And then from there, one thing led to another, and the PBM Foundation was founded in the fall of 2017, and I became part of the leadership team, and the rest is history.
It was great. I remember when you guys invited me up to the first time to the PBM Foundation, as you were discussing the possibilities of where it could go. And tell me about some of those early meetings. Who did you have involved? I know one of them, Dr. Praveen Irani.
Oh yeah, well, obviously we had a wonderful mix. First of all, kudos to Shepherd University to have, it's a 3,300 person student body campus and here in the Panhandle of West Virginia, and you have an incredibly inspirational president, Dr. Mary Hendricks, who actually is a cancer researcher in her own right. She's actually with the National Cancer Institute. She's also on the board of the American Cancer Society. And so it's rare to have a college president who understands medical research and understands new medical technology. He has a very inspired group of people, including a provost, a head of the business school, and then a nursing school, from the dean on down, who are just absolutely, were amazingly enthusiastic about PBM right from the start. So to have that kind of home field advantage, so to speak, I live about 11 miles from Shepherd, as does several of our board members, and have that kind of unity of purpose within a university was very rare. And then the different scientists and practitioners, again, Praveen Irani, who's from University of Buffalo. You had Bob Bowen, who is actually a trained pulmonologist, but who has become a very creative early adopter of PBM. And he just published a paper earlier this year on how he's been, number one, he saved people during COVID, applying PBM to the chest cavity to prevent ARDS and other pulmonary issues, but he has been very successful on addressing brain fog using PBM. And then we had, again, Dr. Patoff, who's one of the early pioneers in this field. And then and then also you have James Carroll from England, who's another major inventor, especially in the light bed environment. And so we had a very interesting eclectic mix of people who came together with one thought in mind and one goal in mind, and that is, how do you make PBM a mainstream medical device and a medical procedure? Many people on the call may know that it was discovered by Andre Mester in Budapest in 1967. He was looking at whether lasers were going to cause cancer. He shaved a bunch of mice, applied a ruby laser, and no cancer. But what happened is the mice hitting the laser, all of a sudden, a lot of hair grew real fast. And he called it biostimulation. And that was really where PBM started. And so, but because it was behind the Iron Curtain, a lot of that research from him and his colleagues didn't really reach the West until after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So when you go on to the National Institute of Health in the United States and look into their library, all of a sudden there's a burst of publications in '91, not because they were all published then, but that was the tidal wave coming out of Eastern Europe. And so we kind of take the PBM movement or application in the West, starting like in that early to mid 90s period instead of the 67 period. So we had almost, all those years where it was literally unknown. And it was still skeptical because a lot of people questioned the scientific integrity of anything that happened behind the Iron Curtain. So that's been a challenge right even to this day. So, but from the mid 90s on to today, over 100 million patients have been in a clinical setting, have been treated with PBM with no documented side effects. And then probably another several million, if not more, have been within the athletic and military and wellness field where they had no medical condition. They were just wanting to be healthier, wanting to perform better, wanting to have more endurance, wanting to have recovery from their different activities. You can add to that. So it's an exciting field where a lot of activity has occurred and a lot of progress, especially in the last 18 months, have occurred.
Right. Well, just recently, Dr. Bowen and Dr. Rani put together the study for the brain fog. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Many people got COVID, and a number of people, including yourself, got the longer term COVID after effect, which was brain fog, where basically it's almost, I wouldn't say it's like Alzheimer's or dementia, but basically you're kind of in a fog. You don't remember things. Your brain is almost on slow motion. And so what they found was if you apply PBM to the brain cavity in different ways, and they use different devices from light bed to different types of helmets, that they found that it fired up the brain. In fact, this now goes back about a little over a year ago. He was explaining it to me on the phone, said, well, and better than explain it, let me just have you do it yourself, even though I did not have brain fog. And so he did an EEG on my head, baseline. He then put a helmet device on for about 14 minutes and did an EEG afterward, and like another third of my brain fired up. And he also did the baseline mental acuity tests, and I aced them all. After the application, I aced them all by as much as double or tripling my score after those 14 minutes of PBM. And this is, and again, I'm a healthy person. I did not have the brain fog. And then when you look at what you applied to yourself, and then one of our best cases as part of his case study was a amazing woman named Ann Abernathy, who's who has a number of records as the oldest person competing in the Olympics and the person who's competed in the most Olympics. She'll be in her 7th one this next summer in Paris. She had brain fog. And the challenge for her was the pharmaceutical treatments that were being recommended to her would have screened her out of Olympic competition of the different additives in those drugs. So she was at wit's end. And so when they applied the PBM, the brain fog went away. And because the International Olympic Committee, going back to the Brazil Games in 2016, officially approved PBM as a natural process. I mean, they literally put in the same category as a bucket of ice or a whirlpool, that she's been able to not only get over the brain fog without triggering any drug screens, but has been using it ever since to help with recovery from her different competitions, as well as improve her performance. I mean, to the point where in the Huntsman Senior Games that just happened a week or so ago, she got gold out of with over 60 countries competing. She was the #1 archer in the world out of the Huntsfield Games. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. I spoke with her this past weekend, and she just had injured her shoulder, and she's using light therapy right now to turn that around. But here she's pulling the bow with 42 pounds force, and she's doing anywhere from 100 to 300 shots in a day.
the length of a
can't
football
imagine.
field. I mean, and she's hitting to win gold. She is literally hitting the center of a dime a football field away. That's how good she is.
And it requires super good acuity and brain skills and everything else. I think you remember when you spoke to me, I wasn't speaking very clearly, was I?
No, I mean, but that's the thing. This whole mental acuity side of it, which is why both in, I mean, you go back to Michael Hamlin at the Harvard Medical School. He's now semi-retired in the Highlands of Scotland, but he started early on looking at mental acuity issues. You have Anne Liebert out of Sydney, who has done amazing work on Parkinson's. And then there's been all other work done at the Ligon Center at the NYU in New York, and by actually several VA hospitals around the country, Boston, Salt Lake City, and Denver, where they are looking at Alzheimer's. They're looking at obviously they're doing things with concussion and traumatic brain injury, but also Parkinson's. And so this whole field of neurological conditions that PBM is treating and successfully, and the documentation, the published research on it is extremely exciting.
Yeah, we so when it was pretty neat talking to Dr. Bowen, but I was as you know, I was going through COVID. I had double lung pneumonia and my oxygen level was sitting at 80. And because of the researchers that I had involved a year earlier, through the COVID, we were going to do a larger study at one of 3 hospitals using the larger light that I have on the lungs. And our study was going to show that we could reduce the inflammation in the lungs with our light devices, as particularly our mini canopy, which is like a foot square, 12 inches by 12 inches. And unfortunately, upper management canceled that study. And I know a lot of studies went down the tubes during COVID. At least therapeutics went down the tube. But in my case, my oxygen levels were coming up and everything was improving. And I remember talking to you, and I think you might have even said you should talk to Dr. Bowen again. And since I had already met him before, I thought, okay, I'll give him a call. And he says, Tom, sounds like you're having really, really good progress on my lungs. And at the time, I was about 2.5 weeks in, and my oxygen levels were now over the 90s, to the low 90s, and from 80. And it was very slow, but it was coming up. And I was treating my lungs. And he said, but Tom, how are you treating your brain right now? And I said, oh, I didn't think of that. And so I then immediately, I mean, I was just not cognitive there yet to think of using the light on my brain, even though I knew that this should be done, but it wasn't. 2 + 2 was 5 at the time, or 3, but it certainly wasn't 4 for me. And so that's when I started using the light on my brain, and others commented that I started being able to be more clearly able to articulate. Not saying that I'm great at it, but I try my best, but never been super good at it, but it was really downhill at that time, and to be able to turn around from that has been good. So PBM for you really started about 2018 then, or earlier?
I mean, yeah, the winter of 2018, we'd in December of 2017, we actually formally organized and chartered the PBM Foundation as a 501c3, and in the state of West Virginia, and with a board. And then we brought on board Gail Szymanowski, who's the executive director of the Academy of Laser Dentistry. She's based in Florida. She's been an outstanding a nonprofit executive for 25 plus years, received many national awards for her work within nonprofits. So she is the overall captain of the ship in terms of the administrative and operational side. And then I was kind of the deputy that is doing all of the outreach, public engagement, and the government labyrinth in terms of regulatory and other engagements to get PBM across the finish line with all the different regulatory and agencies of the federal government.
Well, you also were able to launch the first funding in North America towards PBM, as I understand it.
Yeah, we have the foundation with Shepherd University. We've received over $5 million between federal and state grants to do several very major things. The first most important thing is the nursing school at Shepherd is the first nursing school in the entire country to require PBM knowledge and application as a graduation requirement. And so not only to, they put out about 77 graduates a year between undergraduate and postgraduate, but also to build modules. And this is again where people like Praveen Irani have been instrumental to build online learning modules that we can now take to maybe the other 800 plus nursing schools around the country to seed the clouds, so to speak, next generation of healthcare workers. And all of us know that the nurses are truly the front line of this, to be able to get them to understand PBM. There's also several medical schools, including several in France, that are now requiring it for medical doctors in their programs. The key is that the grants related to building those modules and building the curriculum, also the whole concept of when you go on to Amazon and type in red light therapy, photobiomodulation is more the mechanism of action and more scientific term. The consumer term and the market term is pretty much red light therapy.
Yeah.
And there are thousands and thousands of devices, and most of them overpromise, underdeliver. Many of them are cheap knockoffs from China. And so we've talked about taming the Wild West, which is how do we create standards? So a PBM device that says it's a PBM device really is a PBM device. And then how do you almost kind of create a good housekeeping seal of approval to say it does what it says it does? So another one of the sets of grants was to help us start to develop those protocols. We're now have a pretty robust testing program and testing partners, and we'll be rolling that out in the next couple months to hopefully get more and more involved and create an industry standard that will actually build consumer confidence and institutional confidence that PBM devices do what they say they do.
Yeah, and I appreciate being able to be involved in the early adoption.
Right, you're one of the prototypes, yeah, for that process.
Yeah, and so we're able to work through and get some measurements, and we do say what we say is what we do and what we have out of our units. Not a lot of empty promises, but I was very thankful as well with the ability through the grant process and everything that happened. We were able to get some equipment as well into the Shepherd's University with the large canopy, which covers the whole back and neck in one shot. I know it in the same room. There's the other device, the Novathor bed, which is more like a clamshell, but different modes of being able to treat and different power levels. We have quite a significant amount of optical power that we've maintained through power density that we've maintained through all of our devices. So it's there is in the back here, this is our mini canopy. That's the one I was suggesting that we were going to run with our study, but that's the one I used for my lungs. And the fellow that I had today, he's a talk show host on a major radio station in Buffalo. And he was, at the same time I had my COVID, he had his blood oxygen was 80, mine was 80. We were both in rough shape. And as soon as I immediately started using the light, I started improving. And then I heard about the fact that he was still flatlined. He was not improving. He had been going through almost a month of not getting better. And I said, look, you got to get one of our lights. I'll get it to you. And so he started treating his lungs front and back. And he said, major improvement, even in the first week that he started using the light therapy, the near infrared, the 810. In this case, he was using the 810 nanometer, which has a better ability to penetrate.
Absolutely.
More recently, you've been able to talk to a whole group of people, a whole bunch of doctors. It's not Doctors Without Borders. It's doctors.
No, it's the Doctors for Disaster Preparedness. These are frontline emergency doctors from around America who get together once a year to hear about different scientific breakthroughs. This is my second time speaking to them. I spoke to them last year in Las Vegas, this year in Tucson, and around 200, and many of them are leading in their regions on working with first responders and on disaster recovery. And so very interested in PBM, both because ideally one day there'll be PBM in every emergency room and in every major ambulance and in every disaster recovery center, because if you apply the light even more than putting on a cold compress or an ice bag, you're going to be able to reduce that swelling, reduce that inflammation, and begin the healing process.
Yeah.
I'll think again, a week goes by that I don't get a text, an email, or a call from somebody who says, I used it this way, or a friend used it this way. And whether it's burn victims, whether it is a person with a sprained ankle, whether it's a person who just wrecked their knee on a ski slope, it is the best frontline application that you can do, even for a cut.
Well, we were more recently, it was actually a dentist that put me onto this. But you mentioned Dr. Padoff there, wonderful guy. There's quite a number of dentists that are really early adopters of using laser, because laser was around in their clinics earliest.
Yeah, cutting and cauterizing has been part of dentistry for over 30 years.
And then they started learning about, it didn't take them long to say, hey, we can use light then for speeding up the healing, reducing the inflammation, doing all sorts of things inside the mouth. So that was kind of neat. Well, this one dentist said to me, she said, from all what I've thought, the incidents that she more recently with COVID, number of patients were complaining about having tinnitus come from the whether it be the COVID itself or from the shot. There's VAERS, anybody can look it up in VAERS. It says that it's a possible side effect. But she had used worked with a couple of other patients that had it really bad. And she said, Tom, I'm using patients that want to, while they're doing the work on their teeth, they're using the light on their ear and noticing that the tinnitus is significantly reduced. I mean, this is an area of study that would be wonderful to be able to move forward and fund. Another thing that I believe that we could probably make a difference on is with the right research, not only the lungs to do with, as you mentioned, Dr. Bowen, with his work with COVID, during COVID and inflammation in the lungs, but myocarditis is another one of those things that is a big problem. And I've talked to a few very good researchers. I won't put names to them at this point, but we had a Zoom call and meeting and talked about how it may be possible that the light therapy could be helpful on the heart. And but one thing would be is you can't have a little flashlight to try and do something. You need something with a significant enough of power, kind of like those paddles. That's got a lot of power in a short burst. We've got a lot of power, not in a short burst, but with our light, and it may be able to help slow down or stop the progression of the damage in the heart. You know, and I would
So
hope.
in fact, and again, you know, with the technology, you could do it orthoscopically, where you basically would maybe make a small incision and thread a PBM light device closer to the heart or to other internal organs.
Right, I had developed, and I don't think I ever shared that with you, but we developed a long time ago, it's probably about 13 years ago now, a very powerful LED device inside of a catheter. And it wasn't laser based, it was LED based. We had the LEDs inside the catheter. So it would be possible for that. The whole idea of that was in photodynamic therapy, which is totally different than what we're talking about right now.
Right.
It's where
that has a pharmaceutical component. Yeah.
Correct. And my hopes was that we could have the funding at some point down the road to utilize this catheter-based light to use a photosensitive drug that's targeted, and the person would take that, and 4 hours later, the catheter would be placed in the center of the prostate. And what do you know? We could look at improving, you know, the treatment of prostate cancer. But that's a whole new other field that I've been heavily involved with in using very powerful light. That's how we kind of spilled into photobiomodulation. I don't know if you were at a spot many years ago where you kind of thought, what's the light going to do? Were you at that?
I said once my wife's torn rotator got taken care of, I was a missionary from then on.
With me, I had the very powerful cancer light that we had developed, and we're going through some initial trials with it. And I would have still said up until that point in time, nah, I don't know that. How can that do anything? But, and I could easily believe that, you know, with one of the other devices I designed and was out in the market with for curing the white fillings, using blue light. It has to have the right color of blue to harden the filling. That's kind of my connections then that opened new doors. But in this case, I took the red light, and I thought, I had so much back pain. I had fallen about 15 years earlier off of a ladder onto concrete. My flying lessons were unsuccessful. I hurt myself pretty good, but I didn't break anything. But then every year, 2 years, I'd go through these extreme muscle spasms that would just almost incapacitate me. You know, screaming pain, but hey, self-employed, you got to keep going. So I thought, at that point, what have I got to lose? So I put the light behind my back while I was working on the computer. And about 20 minutes later, the amount of pain was so significantly less. Like with the pain score that they say up to 10, I would have to say that morning in particular, it must have been probably around an 8. It was just on fire. It was screaming at me. And I put the light there, and about 20 minutes later, I thought I had to do something. But I got up very slowly, and I started getting up faster, and I thought, this is crazy. What? And the pain had so significantly dropped, even in that first 20 minutes. So the amount of pain reduction was amazing. And that was with my first powerful light. Well, just like you, with your wife, in this case, with me, with myself, seeing the very first time that much difference. And I've done the chiropractic, I've done the physiotherapy, and tried to improve my position or lower the pain. And to have that quick of a response was amazing to me. And that's what started me being involved in photobiomodulation almost,
Another,
well, pretty much 15 years ago.
yeah, well, another great reality check is in the veterinary world, because animals don't understand placebo effect. A lot of people say, well, you know, you put a light on you, there's a placebo effect. Well, animals don't understand placebo effect. So most veterinarians now in America are using red light in some way, shape, or manner. And we now are down to 2 cats and 1 dog, but we used to have up to 6 cats, and they all lived good long lives up to 19 or 20. And those final couple of years, they started getting arthritis, and we put on the red light, and they completely moved about perfectly. And right now we're using it on our dog, who's just turned 13, a beautiful red heeler. And she's, even just after 2 days of treatment, and this last week we started, you know, she's no more stiffness, running up and down the stairs like she did a couple of years ago. So if one doubts PBM, look at the veterinary world, because again, animals don't understand placebo effect. Either they move better or they don't.
Yeah.
And I said almost every major, you know, mainstream veterinary clinic in America now has some form of red light device that they're using, because we all know that when you have hip dysplasia or any kind of severe arthritis, that's usually what ends the life of effective life of an animal. They're in pain, they cannot eat properly, they can't move properly. And in the case of cats as well, renal failure drew them in, because how small cats are. PBM light is resolving the renal failure issue as well. So, you know, we have this wonderful veterinarian up in Boston who goes around to all the veterinary schools every year and teaches the upcoming veterinarians how red light can be part of the process here. So it's another amazing reality check that this device is really an important part of our health environment.
You've had the chance to have a few lights at your home, different.
We got 6 of them right now.
And how are they working?
Well, what's interesting is, you know, as you know, we all know, because of computers, Moore's law, PBM devices are getting cheaper, they're getting simpler, they're getting more powerful, they're getting smaller, and so the result is that a lot of these devices that we have are kind of that second, third generation PBM, and they all do different things as well. What's interesting is whether it's the configuration of the device. We have some of the helmets, we have the handhelds. You know, we have yours, we have several others, and so depending on whether you've got a headache, whether you have a you know, stiff muscle, you've got a cut, or in the case of our dog, a you know, a stiff right leg, we're using the different devices in these different ways. So it's just really interesting how they all are. I think one day we probably will have kind of condition specific devices instead of one size fits all devices. But you know, in terms of SunPowerLED, my wife likes it the best. Our dog likes it the best. So, you know, a focus group of only 2, but you win the prize of the 6.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I had one of the individuals. He had a cat that was, I think it was 14 or 15 years old, and was now relegated to only one room in the house, in the living room, and that was it, because they couldn't move around without pain. And so where this cat used to be a tomcat being out there in the neighborhood. And so he got one of the mini canopies, this big one, and he used it over the cat. First, the cat was a little sheepish, uncertain about the noise and everything. Didn't take long that he would turn on the light and the cat would come running off their comfortable bed soft bed and lay underneath the light, to the point where the cat started snarling at him if he shut it off. And the cat went from being secluded to one room to starting to explore other rooms in the same level, started climbing the stairs to doing upstairs, downstairs, basement, to starting to roam the neighborhood again. So
that's what it's all about. Yeah, it's incredible.
Total change around for that cat. I had there's lots of dog lovers out there, and the ability of light to help an animal is really something else.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
One of the people that I knew, they had done light therapy for other types of treatment for themselves. And they came in there, they said, looks like our dog we're going to have to put our big lab down, because wintertime, during the winter, it had taken off across the ice to chase a squirrel, and didn't have traction control in place. And ended up wiping out against the far side some kind of bricks that were up on the thing, and severely hurt its rear end area, hip area. And so they were at they had in their house, they had to immediately go up some steps, so they were lifting the animal from the rear up so it could go up the stairs, and they were seriously considering putting the animal down. And they got one of my lights, and they immediately started treating, and it wasn't too long, and the dog had made 100% recovery and was back to chasing squirrels. Maybe learned something from the ice capade, but really made a difference that way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, again, Ron Hertzberg, who's the VA, the vet in Boston, I mean, he does very detailed clinical studies and case studies, and he's averaging up to at least 2 years additional life, quality life, in the animals he's treating. And for those of us, I mean, we probably say "I love you" to our animals more than to our spouses, and so we know how integral they are to our lives. So to know that a loved animal can be with us maybe 2 more years because of red light or PBM treatments, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. So Scott, I'd like you to stay on. We're going to just put your video off for a sec. I'm going to do a quick commercial, so to speak, and then we're going to get into some questions here. Just before I do that, any final thoughts before we go into questions about PBM?
Well, I think the one thing, very quickly, the 2 major breakthroughs have happened in the last year. One is that the Center for Disease Control, CDC, has officially recommended PBM as the opioid alternative, the preferred opioid alternative for pain management. Huge. The other is that the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has come up with after many years, has come up with an accurate description of PBM, and has actually created an expedited process for clearing PBM devices. These are and then the third thing, the Veterans Administration has formally recommended PBM for use in treating traumatic brain injury for veterans. So these are huge governmental policy decisions that have happened only in the last year or so, that once again shows that PBM is becoming the mainstream treatment of choice that we all want.
And the other thing that it's a little more than a year, but the oral mucositis,
that goes back now a couple of years.
Yeah. So people that are undergoing chemotherapy treatment, they can heal their oral issues.
Absolutely. Well, it's like a prophylactic that if you play, and you even have places like St. Jude where they have the pediatric cancer patients, where if you pre-treat before you go into chemotherapy, the side effects don't even happen. And so you can be far more aggressive on the chemotherapy. The big problem with with oral mucositis and the other side effects is you have to suspend treatment in order for someone to recover. And of course, the cancer advances. So if all of a sudden those side effects don't even exist anymore because of the prophylactic use of PBM, then you can just go full tilt on the chemotherapy and get rid of that cancer. And so, I mean, we have major cancer centers, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, WVU, Cancer Institute, many others. But again, St. Jude is the gold standard because if it's safe enough for 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 5-year-olds fighting cancer, fighting for their lives, you know it's the right thing to do.
Mm. Well, thank you, Scott. I'm going to put you on mute now, and then we'll just do our thing, and then we'll come back to answer some of those questions. Please put your questions out there to for Scott to answer, or myself, and we'll try and do our best. At this point, I'll just mention a little bit about our devices. So I've, as I mentioned, I've been at it for over 15 years with light therapy, PBM. In this case, this is one of my oldest devices. So when Scott mentioned we're into a whole new realm of light devices, this was one of my earlier ones, and 15 years ago, and it's big and bulky. But now we've been able to replace that with a device that's very lightweight and runs with low voltage, 24-volt DC, very, very safe. And you can use that then for treatment. Now we have, as I mentioned earlier in my video, we have 40 square centimeters of light that's coming out of this very evenly over the whole area. And then that light power is coming out as a wall of light. And we have the optical power in these devices between 100 and 150 milliwatts plus per square centimeters, which is very significant. So we do have the this device we have one of the other devices called the Classic. I'm really recommending people go to the more newer devices that we have, which this one here happens to be the Professional. It has the 2 wavelengths, the 660 nanometer and the 810. The 810 is pretty invisible, but it's actually quite powerful. You just can't see it, neither can the camera see it. But that's the Professional. That if you go to our website, SunPowerLED.com, and click on the shop button, you can see there the Professional is $975. Then we have the what I call the Ultimate. It has 25% more power than the Professional that I just showed you. And just to give you some idea of the type of light power you have, it's going right through my hand, as you can see here. It's hard to kind of show you, but it's going right through. And so we have that. That's called the Ultimate. And on your screen, it shows that we have the prices there with the chat line. And then we have our newest device, which is the Super Palm 1050. It has the same 660 nanometer wavelength, and the in this case 1050 nanometer. Now, if I look at this right now, it's totally invisible. I can't see anything. I can feel it. I can feel the energy coming out of it. But this happens to penetrate deeper, a little bit deeper because of the wavelength. And as you can see, the light coming out of the purplish looking lights, that's only because the camera is interpreting that as the purple color, but in actual fact, it's a red that's coming out of that. Scott mentioned about the helmets. We do have a helmet that can go on, and it has the 2 wavelengths in there. So it has the 660 nanometer wavelength here, and it has the 810. You can see the 810 nanometer in the back of that device. And there's 10 of the palm lights equally distributed. And we've done a lot of work with the cooling on that. I also have the mini canopy, which this device is, so if you can see how it moves up and down, the big thing about this, you position it whichever way it comes with a stand, but it has the equivalent of 15 of the Palm devices as far as the area is concerned. So you can do a very large area of the back. And this is the device I used for my lungs. And it has the same two wavelengths. You'll see there's the 810 nanometer there, and here's the 660 nanometer wavelength there. So that's what we have for those devices. We're also working with other researchers on the oral mucositis, and we got some possibilities there. So that gives you a little idea of the different devices, and we have a year warranty on all the devices. And as a matter of fact, for the Super Palm 1050, the helmet or the mini canopy, we have a 2-year warranty with them. So all the specifications of the different products are up there, and we welcome your questions. And now I'm going to get into some questions that you have. So Scott, I'm going to bring you back on, and then we can okay. So a fellow by the name of Chris, thank you, Scott, for coming back on. Chris, hello, and thank you for this webinar. How does the SunPowerLED differ from the existing last 5 to 10 years technology available in a wide range of LED products used for similar medical ailments? Well, one of the things is that there's lots of devices out there, and sure, you can treat your skin, and that's been around for the longest, and superficial stuff. But when it comes to treating shoulders, Scott, what do you think?
Well, that's the thing, is that you have a lot of devices on red light devices on Amazon. Many of them are there for taking care of growing hair or getting rid of small wrinkles, the more cosmetic things. But some of them out there, will provide, again, the 100, up to the 850. Some are even pushing 1,000 range in terms of nanometers. Now, those are the ones that are going to give you the penetration, anywhere from 3 to 8 centimeters into the tissue, and enough of joules per centimeter square to actually do something for you. And that's the important part, which is again why we're trying to establish standards and try to testing regimes, because for people who truly want a medical intervention that they can control themselves, that unlike pharmaceuticals, have no side effects, want to make sure that they're getting, if they're going to pay for it themselves, but most of the stuff is not covered by insurance, that they're going to get that value, and most importantly, they're going to get that wellness.
And it's going to last them a lot longer than when you go to the dollar store and buy a LED light bulb and it runs for 3 months, and so it's supposed to have a long life. No, our designs are built to run day in and day out. As a matter of fact, I purposely did not put any batteries in this device, because the battery, the amount of power that I put out on optical power, I'd need a great big drill battery on the back of this device. Well, that would make it pretty heavy to hold, and then you would have to charge it up every half hour. So we decided to go with the adapter route with the 24-volt input. And the one thing that we more recently learned is that the difficulty with being on air transport is lithium batteries, which are in these devices or in a lot of different devices out there, are a no-no to bring on the plane. So you have to, they have to put it in a special thing, and you may not even be able to carry it on. Whereas since this has no batteries in it, you can take it in your carry-on. And as a matter of fact, one of our guests told me that how they used it on the airplane. I'm sure they used the near infrared, so they didn't use the bright red, but they used the near infrared for treating, because now some of the planes are having the 120 volt outlet. We've got a question here from Tina. Does the PBM Foundation offer PBM training or recommend anywhere we can get trained? Good question.
Yeah, at this point, we have a number of industry partners, including SunPower and others, V-Light and Thor. Many of these provide amazing free webinars. And so I would recommend, if you go onto the PBM Foundation website, go to resources, go under our industry partner site, and click on any of them. That many of them offer sometimes monthly training webinars that are for free. Many of them are condition specific, so there might be one on wound healing, one on pain management, one on oral mucositis or neurological issues. So these are extremely useful, because in many cases it isn't the company doing it, they're putting it on, but they're bringing in top of the line research scientists and practitioners talking about how this stuff is actually used. And so these are very sophisticated webinars that are extremely helpful for both the individual patient, but also to the practitioner.
Janet asks here, have I, or you, I guess, contacted Johns Hopkins Cystic Fibrosis Center to use the light on their CF patients to increase the patient lung capacity? Many CF patients have a baseline of 80% or less lung capacity. I have not been. It's very, very important to get the right person to connect into the group. It's very difficult from being an outsider or an industry leader to actually get to some of these internal groups. But it would be wonderful if there's anybody out there in our group that's listening to us and knows somebody. Yeah, this could have a major impact on lung conditions. As a matter of fact, one of the fellows that probably from about a year ago or two was interested in, he actually was a pulmonologist and working with preemie babies. Guess what? You don't need a very big light, Scott, to look after a preemie. Here's something that probably could help. The size of this, a certain distance away, would be just like the blue lights for the bilirubin.
I'm about to say the blue lights has been a standard of care for premature babies for probably a couple of decades at least.
But they need to get into red light or near infrared light for the lungs. That would be great. Chris, can you please describe the noise levels of these instruments? Okay, I think the noise level you may be mentioning is the electronic noise that some are concerned with. And I can tell you, I have an extremely low amount of EMF, that's the electromagnetic interference that you can get from electronic devices. And because of the way we mount our LEDs, and they're on a certain type of board, and the way we do our circuitry, there's so noise levels, if you're talking EMF, and that is extremely low. If you're talking about the fan, so there is a fan, it's not very loud. You might be able to hear it in the background. That's about as loud as it gets, and for the two different wavelengths. So just note that that it's not very loud, but the whole area of the EMF is not there. Lee Grove, I initially got into PBM because of my two torn cruciate ligaments, no surgery. I use light. I now own a business and work on people and their pets. It is amazing. I get to see it work every day. Thank you for the founding of the PBM Foundation. The industry needs the exposure and credibility, so this is a game changer. Tom, thank you for doing these information-based webinars. So thank you, Lee. Appreciate that.
And also,
I
apropos
learned,
to that,
I see.
this is a quickie. 2 weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal had a front page article about PBM, first major article in Wall Street Journal ever. And so that was another great breakthrough. And kudos to Praveen Irani and to Marnie Naser out of Boston University as the two people who were able to wire that through and educate not only the reporter but the health editors of Wall Street Journal to put that in there. So go check that out. It'll be on our website. We're doing an update this week, and you'll be able to read it there as well. But it's a wonderful article focusing, again, to have the Wall Street Journal bring it up is huge.
It's amazing that a major publication would do that. More recently, there's been a few articles through the Epoch Times on, one was on tinnitus, the ringing in there, and they did a beautiful job on showing what's potential. Oops, okay, I got to keep going. I got to move a little faster here.
No worries.
We're going to stick around a little bit more, Scott. Are you okay?
That's fine. Yeah. No, I ate an early dinner. I'm all set.
Okay. All right. I think we might have about another 10 more minutes of questions here.
Sure.
So here we go. Lauren, SunPower Plus. Lauren, it's great to be able to connect with you. How long to use to penetrate when the hip or thigh is injured? How do we know if we're using the proper time length? So with the hip, there's a lot of losses to get the energy to the depth. And so with my palm device, I'm going to suggest you need to do 10 to 15 years on the area. And you may spread that out 10, 15 minutes here and 10, 15 minutes here on different angles, depending on how large the injury and the muscles. Sometimes, a lot of times, the muscles can contribute to that healing or lack of healing, because sometimes it gets so tight, the blood flow slows down. And that's a big thing that can happen. So 10, 15 minutes. And I'm suggesting to a lot of people that they want to treat if they can. Hey, we eat 3 times a day. The cells are hungry. It's okay to treat 2 or 3 times a day. I've found that people have really been able to advance the situation. Another question had come up earlier about power, optical power. And one of the things is some might be able to relate to it this way, especially you, Scott, in Virginia. You've got some hills there, some pretty significant hills. And if you have a full load in your pickup truck and it's a 4-cylinder, compared to going up with a full an 8-cylinder, which one will probably get you to the top best? It'll be the 8-cylinder, right? The one with more power. Absolutely. And so that's a lot of the times too, especially when it comes to deep issues, deep joints. To get the energy there, you got a lot of losses. Before you go through the first skin layer, very thin skin layer, you've lost you've lost 2/3 of your light. As you go the next centimeter, you're down another 10 times in light level. So by the time you're in a centimeter in, you've lost 30 times the light power from the surface. So by the time you're 2 and 3 and 4 centimeters in, you're going to have much more available on the surface, which is between power and also how much power and time is the 2 factors that help for something deep. I mean, if you're just trying to treat arthritis in your fingers, a minute, 2 minutes will probably be plenty to do that. So yeah. So another question.
Just to interject there as well, safety issue of PBM, especially when you're using high-powered LEDs. this is the safest intervention you could ever imagine to put on your body, because this isn't cutting lasers, this isn't tanning beds. I mean, I have had friends who've fallen asleep in some of these PBM beds, and nothing happens, because even it isn't like you can overdose. I mean, it's more like point of diminishing returns. 15 minutes and like a Novathor, yeah, you're still going to get some benefit, but the marginal increase in benefit is very marginal. So the 12 to 15 minute range for like a Novathor bed is a perfect example, where if you're trying to like bring a whole military unit through, or some other team through, athletic team through, it's about throughput at that point.
Yep.
So the safety factor, ramp up. I mean, the higher the energy of a PBM device, the length of time of the PBM device, it's not going to harm you at all. And again, 100 million patients, can't be wrong.
Yeah, and this is another area that there was a question, I think it was on my last webinar, but I'll repeat it because I thought it was pretty good. What about the safety with the light? And you're talking about, but again, between lasers and LEDs, well, lasers are a very focused light source. It's coherent. So if you point it, unless they have a diffuser tip on the tip, you will have a dot across the room, which means if you're across the room and you happen to be using a laser device and you don't see it, you could actually damage somebody else's eyes in the retina with that. But with LEDs, the light coming off of it is divergent, so you don't end up with any hot spots on the retina. And in that case, I mean, we don't see signs posted on Florida's beaches saying, don't sunbathe longer than a half an hour or you'll go blind. I mean, what do? We close our eyelids. So you close your eyelids. The type of optical power that I have out of my device is very similar to that out of the sun, and you can be safe with the device even closing your eyes. But even if you should open your eyes, I mean, it's not like you open your eyes and you look at the sun for a moment, you're immediately going blind. This is, you just don't stare at it for, and only people get in trouble when an eclipse happens every so often. You decide to stare at it for a long period of time. That's not a good thing. You don't stare at the sun. But in this case, with your eyelids closed, you're pretty safe. If you do feel you want more light reduction for more comfort, there's darker glasses, or you can block the light, or you can do that. Janet, there's a question here from Janet. I have had my SunPowerLED 1050 for a year now. How much longer can I expect it to last? I use it several hours a day. Janet happens to have so this is great, Janet. So as far as the light, the LEDs, the way I've designed them, is not like you would get. I mentioned the bulb from the dollar store. I did the proper designing in the LED, so the LEDs run really cool. So we are looking at 50,000 hours of light output out of an LED. Well, that'll carry you for the next 25 years if you use it 2,000 hours a year. What would that be? 7 hours, 6 hours a day or something every day. So you're going to be good for the next long time there, with using the device. I keep my LEDs at a maximum temperature of 45 degrees C inside, and that's why they're very happy, and they'll use long life for these devices. And if you do have a problem, we have the warranty, and we are looking at it. If people want to buy an extended warranty, that's fine too. Anonymous, is it possible to use an adapter for use in car cigarette lighter? Absolutely. Those little $30 plug-in adapters will give you 120 volts, and you can plug your adapter right into that and run it in your car. I wouldn't suggest you use the powerful red light Don't do anything while you're driving that would compromise your driving. But if it happens to be that you got a sore on your cheek, on the lower end, you could probably put a little light there and let it sit. But I would not recommend using the bright red light, the 660 nanometer, in the middle of the night while you're driving. I don't suggest that. But in the car, you can treat everybody else who's in the car. Okay, so Lorraine asks, oh yeah, I'll leave you have this one, Scott. I've been treating my sinus for a couple of weeks, ear to ear, and I notice I wake up frequently through the night. Could it be stimulation of my brain?
Probably. There's actually, V-Light has actually a nasal probe that is part of their process, and everyone is trying to find ways to get into the brain cavity, whether it's the temples, whether it's the ears, base of the neck, or up to the nasal. And so, but yeah, I mean that's. But on the other hand, I mean I know when I'm using a light bed, that I usually get like mid-afternoon. I'll get the next 3 nights would be some of my best sleep of the week.
Yeah, I've heard.
So that's part of it too.
A number of people have commented that that they get like one of the persons who bought one of the helmets off me. She had a number of issues, including a lesion on the brain, that she's now found that she's gets 7 hours of sleep now in a row. And she found that she's got a much higher acuity during the day and not sluggish. But she did say she learned that she cannot use the helmet after 7 o'clock in the evening. In her case, now it's not stimulating. It's actually by 7, when she uses it that late, it actually causes her to shut down. And she says, I'm in bed so much earlier than my husband. He doesn't see me. I can't do it that. So she knows now she has to treat at 5 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. And she says it works wonders. I'm getting the best sleep I've gotten in a long, long time.
Well, another part of this, which again is extremely important for the veterans, at several of these veterans hospitals, they are treating post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD. And it's what they find is that if they are treating veterans before they go into their, even for their annual checkup or whatever, it's a calming component that really does improve a person's psyche, so to speak. So there's just some amazing neurological observations that are hopefully going to lead to some additional breakthroughs in the way PBM is used.
I'm really looking forward to this device here being able to be, it's at 2 locations in the West Virginia that they're doing the study. I think you're probably aware of it, the study with the opiate and depression. And
right.
Really looking forward to the results of the study coming out from the use of this device. And it's in this device, it's 3 minutes. That's the whole treatment.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing is when people look at whether it's physical rehabilitation, whether it's trying to wean oneself off of opioids or other addictive substances, wound healing, whatever it is, that the speed at which light impacts the body is far and above any pharmaceutical. And again, no side effects. I mean, even if you take too many aspirin, you can have a, upset stomach or other things. So when you're dealing with a natural process, helping a natural process, which is light coming into the body to help rev up the mitochondria that helps cellular function, you can't go wrong. And it's just amazing that, this isn't every place it should be right now, which is one of our challenges.
Yeah. Chris is asking, is the light mini canopy available? Yes, the mini canopy is available. The reason I don't have the pricing structure on the website is because it depends on the features that you are after. There's a range of price from $5,900 up to $9,900, depending on the options that you have. Okay, Janet mentions a Dr. Boyle, a cystic fibrosis doctor at Johns Hopkins, is also the president of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So Dr. Boyle, so I do not have any connections there, but Scott, maybe
we like, that's what we do. We knock on doors and raise awareness and educate and engage and hopefully put people with respected peers. So, I mean, I'm a lay person and my background's policy. And so sometimes the dialogue continues and we end up with, you know, a major medical partner. Other times, sometimes it just sounds almost too good to be true, because when you start to realize that, you know, the electron transport chain, which is literally subatomic, we have 32 trillion cells in our body. We have up to 100,000 mitochondria in cells dealing with the brain, and then countless numbers of these tiny subatomic processes called the electron transport chain that basically takes energy, turns it into the power that, again, powers the mitochondria, that powers the cell. It doesn't take much of a tweak to make things better. And that's really what the power of PBM is. But when you realize that 80% of what ails us, whether it's in terms of, you know, illnesses, injuries, aging, has something to do with cellular function, PBM is going to address a lot of different conditions. Mm-hmm. And that just sounds like snake oil to too many people, because, you know, we're so stovepiped into, if I'm working on liver cancer and you're working on trying to heal you know, diabetic ulcers, we have nothing in common. Well, yes, you do, because both can be dealt with PBM, and that just blows too many people's minds. I mean, it's this truly a disruptive, but basically a true revolutionary approach to health. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of people out there who will probably be trailing edge for the foreseeable future, and that's our challenge.
So we just got a couple questions here. Thank you, Scott. We're going to just deal with these last few. Just hang in there for another minute if you don't mind. So Vincent asks, could you possibly post some of the webinars? Yes, we do. We have the webinars posted on the SunPowerLED. If you go into the more category and look up videos, past videos, you can see the different videos listed there. And we will have this video hopefully posted in a few days as well. So yes, so we have from, I believe, Nitish, you can confirm this, but I believe Nitish is from India. And Nitish, welcome. I guess you're at 8 o'clock in the morning, so or a little earlier.
Yeah, they're 9.5 hours different.
Okay, you were just Scott was down in India, and you had a fantastic time there, and it was the PBM, the World Association of
the World Congress, where it's the first live one we've had since Nice in 2018 because of the COVID. We had several virtuals, but we had 500 people from over 40 countries. I mean, it was the largest Walt Congress in its history. I mean, it was just absolutely an amazing opportunity for all these people to not only share information formally, but as with any good conference, it's over the coffee, it's over the drinks, it's over the snacks, it's over the lunch and breakfast. I mean, the amount of interaction that took place at a very high level launched a lot of new initiatives, which we're still working on to follow up and to broaden. But India is now the largest country in the world population-wise. It has always been an innovator in technology and now in medical technology. And the number of people from India and from the Asia region that attended was huge, and a lot of great positive initiatives have been launched from that great conference.
Yeah, and I believe that's it sounds like they may even, if they work together, they may even lead the world in PBM eventually, if because of
Right. There was a wonderful article in the Sunday Guardian of India that just came out that was authored by Dr. Lou Lim from V-Light, talking about some of the spin-offs and opportunities from the WALT conference and from the how India can really take the lead in this. Of course, they just before our conference or Congress, we had the India hosted the G20. So it truly is stepping forward into the world stage, and we're hoping that medical technology innovation will be part of them staying on that world stage.
Second last question here, which wavelengths for the brain fog and how many times a day? Again, it would be the 810 nanometer or the 1050 if you have the Super Palm. And that would be, I would start off with 1 time a day and just see in 2 days how everything's going. And you can always expand it. If a person's treating around the brain, although the helmet can do the whole area in 3 minutes, you would have to do the different areas. People with seizures, we've had people with seizures improve. We've had people with severe migraines, and it's a case of treating the areas where they know the target is, and that might be only 3 minutes of time. And sure, they can treat it 2 or 3 times a day, but I wouldn't start off right away first time with 3 times. Just ease into it. So Scott, that's the last of our questions, and we've gone well over time this time, but we had an excellent time here. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time with us. You are definitely a world leader for PBM and in helping people to understand the benefits of PBM. So thank you for all that you're doing. And
thank you for having these, because again, it's all about spreading the word. It's all about raising the awareness. It's all about answering these kinds of questions and giving people that comfort level and that education as a consumer of health to move forward and use this technology, because it's only going to help them.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you, Scott. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Okay, so we'll just say that those that came in tonight, as I mentioned, they'll be entered into the draw. And so we'd like you to, we won't be available or we won't be doing a webinar on the 31st. We're going to do another one 7 days later, so that'd be the 7th, I believe, Tuesday evening. So all the best to everyone out there. May God richly bless everyone listening in. Thank you. Bye for now.